mynews.studio.
At COP28, one sentence put the world's fossil fuel era on alert. But can nations actually follow through on what they've promised?
Today's date is November 2nd, 2025. For the first time, almost 200 countries have signed a pact at COP28 to move away from fossil fuels. But to start off, what did everyone actually agree on?
The main goal is to reach net zero emissions by 2050. That means cutting greenhouse gases as much as possible and using ways to remove what's left from the atmosphere. It's more than just an aim. Countries also agreed to triple global renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030.
So every country needs to boost renewables like solar or wind and also get more output from less energy.
Yes, exactly. And what's new here is how broad this is. Both developed and developing countries are committed. Each one must submit updated climate plans, called NDCs, by 2025. These plans have to cover all greenhouse gases, all sectors, and aim to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius.
But is there a way to make sure countries actually stick to this? How do we check progress?
COP28 set up a process called the Global Stocktake. Every country has to regularly assess and publicly report their progress. That means transparency. Independent groups and the public can look at the data. But
wait, so there aren't legal penalties if a country falls behind?
right, there's no direct punishment. It's about peer pressure and public accountability, not fines or courts.
That sounds risky. What's to stop countries from making big promises and then not following through?
That's the main challenge. The hope is that regular stocktakes and international scrutiny will keep countries on track. This is also the first time a global pact specifically calls for moving away from fossil fuels. That changes expectations. Still, it's not enforced by law. It's about reputation.
Let's talk about fairness. Some countries depend heavily on fossil fuels for jobs and income. How did the agreement address that issue?
The agreement calls for a transition that's just, orderly, and equitable. Wealthier countries are expected to lead and to support those most affected. There's a new loss and damage fund, over $700 million pledged so far, to help vulnerable countries cope with climate impacts and shift their economies. On top of that, technical assistance is coordinated through the Santiago Network for Loss and Damage.
700 million. Does that really cover what's needed? The scale seems huge.
It's a starting point, but it's not nearly enough for the long term. The intention is to build a system for ongoing support and to show that wealthier nations recognize their part. Plus, the agreement stresses that technical help is just as vital as funding.
One thing I'm curious about. Do you think this deal will shape how future climate talks unfold?
It's likely, by raising standards, creating public reporting, and requiring all countries to update their plans by 2025, COP28 sets a precedent. Even though it's not legally binding, the wording and the agreement could push towards stronger, maybe binding deals in the future. It shows the world is shifting, though the speed and follow-through are still in question.
So this really could be a turning point. The fossil fuel era isn't over, but the direction is clearer now.
Yes, and what happens next depends on whether countries turn these promises into actual change across policies, industries, and even daily life.
That wraps up our look at COP28's agreement to move beyond fossil fuels. We covered the main commitments, the accountability steps, and the big questions on fairness and enforcement.
Thanks for listening as we unpacked the details and what they might mean for the climate.
Thank you for tuning in. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it for free.